Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we are answering the question, is it time for a separation? And I know that if you're in that place where you're even thinking about that or considering it, I know that you're hurting because we don't just casually think about that or casually ask that question. I know you're feeling overwhelmed. You're probably feeling just exhausted. That's usually where that question comes in is you're tired of the same pain. You're tired of experiencing disconnection, feeling hurt, and you just want to break. You might even be feeling hopeless, like there is no hope. So this is kind of like the last ditch effort to go to a separation instead of full-on divorce. We've been there, and we want to share just some things we've learned along the way. I think there is a healthy way to do this. I'm actually pro separation.
Yes. Sometimes it is the way to go. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really think that, so short answer, is it time for a separation? And actually, we're not answering that question for you at all. No. We're just going to give you some things to consider because we don't want to ever give like a blanket statement to any kind of personal question like that. You can definitely reach out to us and we would be more than happy to walk with you and guide you a little bit more personally, but there's no blanket answer for that today at all.
No, absolutely. Like Cara said, we've been right where you're at. I mean, we've been in these kind of situations, and we chose to separate because things were getting so toxic in our relationship where we were fighting or we were like hurting each other over and over again. We were having a lot of unhealthy conflict, and so that culminated in we can't do this anymore. We've got to do something drastic to stop the conflict.
And when Adam says we had separations, it's not your typical separation where like somebody moves out because we have, kids. We did not want to bring that kind of dynamic into our family where like one of the parents all of a sudden is moving out. That would have been more helpful, to be quite honest, but that wasn't an option for us. And so ours looked a little different. We're not sleeping together. We're not really going for connection. We are purposefully taking space and working on the things that we needed to be healing and really focusing that way separately instead of together.
So we've had a couple times where we've separated in that same way that Cara described. And one of the times when we separated like that, I remember taking it personally. Like she was the one who initiated the separation and kind of put up a boundary and said, we need to do this. And I was hurt even by the fact that we needed to have a separation. And I wanted to continue to try to like work things out. I wanted to still like interact. I wanted to like sleep in the same room. And so I interpreted it more as like a punishment than an actual like healing separation. And so that was unhealthy and unhelpful for that time, because rather than taking this space and really going deep, working on what was the issue, what was actually happening in my heart, and what did I need to heal, what did I need to grow in, I spent a lot of that separation just ruminating and staying in sort of a victim energy and not really growing and just enduring it. Like if that's a separation that you've been through and you feel that victim energy come over you, you can stay in this angry place. It's their fault that we're in this separation and I don't want to be in this and I just am going to sit here and be angry in this instead of actually go after growth. And that was an unhealthy time when I was in that. And then another time we both sort of agreed on it. We were recognizing again that we were in a lot of unhealthy conflict, and this time we really intentionally took that separation. We did some inner reflection and some work and some time with God, and we spent that time actually healing what was hurting. And then from a more healed and whole place, we were able to repair and come together and move forward in our relationship in a much healthier way because we had the separation, because we weren't constantly in this fight or flight kind of state. We needed that distance and that time to really get that healing.
And I think a lot of couples that we've worked with can probably relate to that first instance where they're using that time not necessarily to reconnect or to heal or to, do that inner reflection. It's more like, I'm just doing this because I'm frustrated. I am at my wit's end. The other spouse wanted the separation, and so I'm just going to stew over here. or maybe they even wanted the separation, but they're just numb, they're just checked out, and they're not really using it as a productive time.
One of the guys that's in my Refined Men's membership, he's experiencing separation from his wife, and his wife has really checked out and is on her way out of the marriage, I would say. And yet he is using the time of this separation to really go after growth. He's in a really solid place because he recognizes that he can't control what she does, but he can work on himself. And he's going to keep praying for the marriage, and he's going to keep, going after repair and healing as much as he's able to. But he's also taking the time to really work on himself and to grow his relationship with God and to show up really strong for his kids and show up really strong in who he is and getting deep into his identity again. It's really powerful to see that, and I'm really encouraged by that because he's taking this time and he's making the most of the separation in hopes of and in an effort to reconnect with his wife. Whether that happens or not, he is going to have experienced all this growth, and that will be a powerful thing that God can use no matter what happens in the relationship. And it's hard to talk about separation without bringing in the topic of divorce a little bit. And there's the passage in Malachi 2:16 that says God hates divorce. And I think a lot of times, even in the area of separation, a lot of Christians can use that passage to say there cannot be separation and you just have to stick it out. You have to stay together no matter what. And I understand what they're saying with that, but at the same time, God's not using his word to just kind of like club us over the head so that we do the right thing, that we stay married, that we don't get a divorce, that we physically stay together. That isn't really what he was going at in that passage, because that passage is so much more about the covenant of marriage and God's love for that covenant and for that relationship. Because in the context, these men were basically divorcing their wives for no good reason, and then they were acting as if they had a perfectly great relationship with God and that they were doing the sacrifices and they're doing all the outward religious things and basically pretending that everything's fine on the outside. And God's like, no, the whole point is your heart. Your heart is what matters the most. And he had this love and this desire for them to have a heart for their marriage and not to just destroy their marriage and then pretend that everything's okay on the outside. There can be a lot of pressure from Christian circles to just stick it out, just stay together. At all costs. You cannot separate in any way. There cannot be anything like that because that's going to be sinful and wrong. And God is against that. And that isn't the heart of God. The heart of God is really for this connection to grow, for the relationship to heal, for the covenant to be honored and preserved. But it only is honored and preserved when people are healing and actually prioritizing that relationship and getting what they need from him to show up strong in that relationship.
And the bottom line is, God cares about you, right? He wants what's best for you. And that's part of this too, is like he knows what divorce does to his children. We think when we're in pain, and I have thought this so many times, it's like, I can't take this anymore. Okay, what's the solution to get out of the pain? Divorce. Just escape, right? Your brain is like trying to protect you from more pain. And so it's like, escape, like leave. And so that's why we go to divorce. We're like, okay, yes, that's the relief that I've been wanting. That's going to give me relief. But the thing is, it doesn't. It is very painful. It is not in God's best for us. Usually, He cares about you, and your specific situation is different than anyone else's, and it matters. And there is no, like we said at the beginning, there is no just like sweeping generalization that, okay, the answer for you is never get divorced. That's not what we believe. We know that God is about restoration. That's part of this too, is like, yeah, his heart is to restore. His heart is to bring restoration to what seems really hurting and painful. And he values you, and he values your marriage, and he values that connection, just like Adam said. And so that's what this is about. It's not just this, rule that you better not break it. God talks a lot about it in the Bible about what his best is for us, but yet some of these things we like elevate above others and like never divorce because God hates divorce. And we use these passages to just hammer things, which really a lot of times causes more pain for couples that are confused and hurting.
Yeah, it just causes a bunch of shame in the relationship then. And you shame yourself into forced behaviorism, and there's no healing in that at all.
Yeah. It's really hard when you are feeling emotionally unsafe or you're living in constant conflict. Like that was one of the problems for us, is this constant conflict. It was driving us crazy. You're just emotionally drained and your body says, I can't do this anymore.
It's like being in war. If you're in war, you're fighting over and over again. There has to be some relief. There has to be a break, or you're just going to completely wear yourself out.
If you're, wanting that relief, that makes sense. And I have a question I want to ask you to lead you down the next step here. And it is, am I trying to escape or am I trying to heal? Those are two very different motivations. And honestly, I have had both of them.
Yes, me too.
And I think sometimes they can be interwoven a little bit together.
Yeah.
But you can obviously see the escape is a leaving of the covenant that you made, a leaving of what could be restored. And the healing is something that can happen no matter what your spouse does or doesn't do, right? It starts with you, and God has that for you. He has that for you no matter what ends up happening in your marriage or what your spouse is doing or not doing. That healing is available. And the other part of the escape is like, a lot of times we escape even from what's going on inside of us, where it's like, I just want to numb out. I just want to check out. I don't want to even think about any more of this. What's happening in me, what maybe I'm responsible for, what needs healing. We just want to escape it all. And so there's two very different motivations there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Bible talks about a separation that happened, and it's not a marriage separation, but it's instructive in this whole topic of separation in your marriage too. And that is in Genesis 13 between Abraham and Lot. And so if you remember that story, Abraham and Lot, they were getting really prosperous, their flocks were growing, and their herdsmen started to fight with each other over water rights and over the pasture. And so they agreed to choose different areas to live in so that they wouldn't be so closely tied together. It was preserving the relationship, because what was happening was all this constant conflict, and they're rubbing against each other, and there was only going to be more and more trouble when they were together. And Abraham did this in a really humble way, like he let Lot choose. He could have pulled rank to have the better land, but he was very humble in this. And so in a very peaceful and very loving way, they separated ways in order for them to have the peace they needed to flourish and to thrive again. That is a good example of what a healthy separation is like in marriage. It is just to find peace and space and margin in order to heal and to grow, so that there can be a healthy relationship in the end.
Yeah, because with Abraham and Lot, it wasn't because they hated each other or because they were ending the relationship forever, because eventually then Abraham came and he rescued Lot.
Yeah.
He was acting from love over and over again there, right? That was an overflow of love. And that's really what we want, even though you may not be necessarily feeling like you like, or you maybe even love your spouse. I know there's that deep love there. When you are filling with God and when you are healing with God, you get that overflow of love. And that's really where we want you to be making decisions from a grounded, really centered, full place. But a separation can still be helpful to work towards that peace and to reduce the destruction that is happening, right? Because Adam and I, one of the reasons why we did it is because we just kept hurting each other more. So we're trying to heal what's been going on in the past, but as we're trying to do that, we're just continuing to hurt each other. So it's like, it was an overwhelm. Like, I want to heal, but like, there's just more things coming in. It's like, if you get wounded on battle and you're trying to, take care of that wound, and then you just keep getting hit, you just keep getting shot or whatever. It's very hard to handle more things coming in, more pain coming in when you're already trying to attend to the pain that's already there. So like we talked about, separation can either be, a tool for healing where you are getting help, right? Don't just stay in it yourself and try to figure it out. That is not going to work. So you're getting help, you're resetting, you're seeking God, and you are inviting in that healing. Or it can be where we see couples just slowly drift farther apart. We're going to eventually be divorced, but like, let's just start with a separation, right? It's that attitude of like, I'm done, I'm checked out, I'm hardened towards my spouse, I am not really interested in trying to go for connection. Maybe you're not reflecting, you're just keeping the blame pointed at them, and it's not going to bring you back in a healthy way.
So if you're in this dynamic where you're experiencing a separation or considering a separation, the big invitation in this is to invite God's healing in for yourself. You go after healing with God. God, heal me. Show me the patterns that are unhealthy in me. Show me the mindsets that need to change and the heart posture that needs to change here. Invite him in, because he is a God who's like waiting at the door to do these things for you. That is what he's here to do. I mean, you can change the environment, you can change all kinds of different situational stuff in your marriage, but if you don't get to the heart of it, if you don't actually change the patterns and the posture and the deeper things going on inside of you, it really won't matter. You're just rearranging things on the surface. It won't actually shift the things that need to shift in your marriage so that there can be healing and connection again.
And one person can shift the dynamic. You don't need to both necessarily even be doing this. One person, like Adam was talking about, that guy in Refined, who is, in the separation with his wife, and he's going after this, he can shift the entire dynamic.
Yeah, it's like an invitation. It's a standing invitation for the other spouse to come in. Does that always happen? Maybe not, but it can, and it has, where that invites and inspires change and growth in the other spouse.
And I've heard this one a lot when couples say, well, we've tried it all. And if you're in that spot and you're like, well, we have tried it all, right? It shows that you're tired. And it reminds me of this passage, which I have had to remind myself of many, many times, from Galatians, where it says, don't grow weary in doing good, for in due time you will reap a harvest if you don't give up. Yeah. And I don't want to just say those, that sounds good. That's not what that's for. That is actually like solid truth.
It's a promise from God that you can hold on to.
Yeah, and I'm not encouraging you to stay in unsafe situations or harmful, a harmful relationship, but I do want you to ask, like, have we done the inner work that leads to transformation? Because a lot of times we've tried it all is like, I tried to talk in a calmer way. I tried to say things differently. We've been to couples counseling. We've talked to our pastor. Has it led to inner work that has led to inner transformation? That's the stuff we see a lot of couples get tripped up on. We went to the couples counseling. It didn't work. We talked to our pastor, and they can be very helpful. They absolutely can. Yeah. But we've experienced, and we've seen a lot of couples who've experienced it not being helpful. And there's still inner work that needs to be done that is missing.
And so we have a number of good questions that if you are facing this dynamic, you're facing a separation, that will help you really get to the bottom of what is the point of this separation. Is this helpful or is this not helpful? And so if you are considering a separation, think about a couple of questions like this. The first one is, are we both willing to work on ourselves instead of blaming, instead of pointing the finger at our spouse? That is such a big one. That's so important, because you can't heal if you're constantly looking outside of yourself for the solution. Like, if you think the marriage problem is your spouse, you're never going to actually grow yourself. You're going to be always looking at them, and that will not encourage growth at all. Another question is, have we invited wise counsel in? Have we gone and talked to several different sources that are really helpful and can really guide us in this healing process, whether that's individually or whether that's as a couple, who are really speaking God's life and truth into us and helping us go after that healing and that growth that we need, so that we can come and reconnect on that deeper level and have that transformation that we're looking for.
Another good question that is important to ask is there emotional and physical safety in the relationship? Because when those things are missing, it can just bring about more and more pain. And so it's really important to ask those questions. And it's important for both of you to give your perspective on that as well. And then another one, I really, really love this one. Am I expecting my spouse to heal something in me that only God can? Yeah. Because sometimes we come to our relationship and we bring in so much, even from before we're married, we're bringing in these unhealed wounds and all kinds of complicated relational dynamics that became into. And we are wanting them to heal it, to make it feel better, to make us feel loved, to heal those wounds in us that they can't, they never will. And so we become very graspy, and we're trying to get that to happen, and it doesn't. Only God can heal that, and he can. He absolutely can, and he wants to.
Yeah. And another really good question is, are we making this decision out of a desire for peace, or are we making it out of pain? Are we letting our wounds do the talking here, or are we really just, going for that connection? We're peaceful, we're calm, we're using God's wisdom here in order to make this decision.
Yeah. If you're in the situation where you're considering separation and it's because you feel like you're losing yourself, I want you to know that matters. But actually, you don't lose yourself from staying in the relationship. And I know that is how I felt at some point. I was like, this is destroying me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because of this relationship. It's because of this marriage. But actually, it comes from abandoning your voice, from abandoning your boundaries, from abandoning your connection with God, abandoning your connection with yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Separation, it's not going to automatically give you that back. These are things that need to be prioritized by you, right? Prioritize healing and coming back to your true identity, who God really says you are. That is key. A lot of times we're in the survival mode, not living from who God has created us to be, right? He's like, I give you everything all day. Like, I give you love, joy, peace, patience. That's who you are. You have my Holy Spirit in you, and that's who you are. As my daughter, as my son, you get to live from abundance in those things. But we forget that, get hurt, and we kind of jump out of our identity, and it can just spiral. And so coming back to your true identity and coming out of that survival mode and living back in safety, no matter what's going on around you, that is really so key here.
Yeah, and also if you feel like you're starting to lose your spouse, that can be really painful too. That really does matter. And I've even felt that in some ways when we've had separation, and I'm like, oh my goodness, am I losing her? And that can be really painful, watching them kind of pull away or withdraw and not really knowing how to fix it. And so that does matter. But really the solution is the same. You still go after healing yourself, because you can't control them. If they're moving away, you can't control them. Like we said before, you can invite them by being strong in who you are, growing in your identity in God, and filling up with his love, so much so that you are then loving them from an overflow, instead of that graspy neediness, instead of that desperation to hold on and pull them back to you. You are coming full and strong in your identity in God and able to love them from your authentic self. And honestly, that is the most powerful thing that can very likely invite them back into the relationship.
Yeah. And separation is not the solution. Staying is not the solution. Transformation and healing, that is the solution. God is not saying to you, make the right decision, do the right thing. He's saying, come close. He wants to be with you in this. He wants to heal what's going on underneath. That's what is needed here. It's coming closer to him, coming back to yourself and seeing what's going on there, and then bringing that amazing healing love that he offers us.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're asking this question, is it time for a separation? There's actually a deeper, more important question to answer, and that is, what is God trying to heal right now? What is God trying to heal right now within me? What is God trying to heal right now within us and our relationship? And am I willing to do it with him? Am I willing to go after it with everything that I have?
Yeah. And don't feel like you need to rush a decision like this, especially if it's more on the way of moving out separation, which can be a bigger decision than just kind of what we were doing.
Yeah.
We're here to help. I know often if we're feeling that kind of urgency, it is, again, we're in survival mode and we're trying to just escape the pain. So I would encourage you to just take some time and let yourself know that it's okay to first come to a grounded place before you make the decision. We're here to walk with you and help. We do offer our couples coaching, and this is really a perfect time for you to jump into either Restored for wives or Refined for men, because in those memberships, you're going to get the support you need for your individual healing, right? Adam focuses more on the guys, their identity and the inner healing that men need, that they're often confused about. They were never taught, emotional health and what to do when painful things like this come up, but yet they're expected to lead. And so it can be very confusing. Yeah. And so he walks with men through that, and I walk through specifically with wives where they're feeling unsafe, where they're feeling unloved, unseen, and they just want to make it go away. They might deep down be very committed, right, and love their husband, but they don't know what to do either, and they're trying. And so I help you to relax back into your true identity, come back to a place of living from rest instead of living out of the survival mode, which is so stressful and so damaging for your entire being. And so God is on the move in there. It is amazing and beautiful to see what he's doing and to give you the support that you need. Each one of those memberships, you're going to get personalized help from us. This isn't where we just throw you something and okay, figure it out on your own, go through our course. We do have courses for you, but we walk with you through them. I offer weekly coaching inside Restored where you can bring your specific situation. Adam also offers specific coaching for the guys in Refined. So we have the links for that in the show notes, and we're going to put the questions that we offered you if you're considering separation. We're going to put those in the show notes as well so that it's just easier for you to access. This is a very sensitive topic. We want you to know we're here. If you have questions, you need help, please reach out. Don't feel like you have to go through this alone.